2004 has come to an end. As the year wraps up, we can look back on the past year in many ways. We think of the new memories we've made and try to figure out how good we thought the year was. It is also a time where we look back and see the media we've interacted with throughout the year. There are many services that track or allow you to track what you've listened to, read, watched, or played over the last year. Many of these services also offer an end of the year wrap-up, showing us what our year looked like regarding that particular media. This has always been a fun thing for me to look at the end of the year. I like organization and stats, so seeing what I listened to most, a reading summary for the year, or what I played over the past year is always enjoyable. And that's kind of what this video represents. It's a look at my year in gaming. I don't tend to be on the cutting edge of games, I have a huge backlog and a wide range of interests, and not nearly enough time to play all the games I want to. I can't really do an end of the year video on the best games that released this year. I've only really played one game that released in 2024, and that's Marvel Rivals, which has only been out a few weeks. While it is a look at my year in gaming, I frame this idea as awards for the year. I highlight some weird categories and also ones that are more expected for a video like this. While I can't have a normal top 10 list for the end of my year, these categories are my replacement for that. Before I get to the awards for my year, I want to give some general gaming stats for my year. According to my records, I played 43 games this year and 3 DLCs. I finished 11 story games and earned 12 platinum trophies. This was rather close to last year's amount. I had 2 fewer games played this year, but managed to platinum more games this year than last. And it's these 43 games that will be what I'm pulling from for this year's list. So let's take a look at what games were the big winners and losers of my year. We'll start with some of my odder categories and work our way to some of my favorite games of the year. So start off with worst game I played this year. Now this really isn't a positive category, but I wanted to acknowledge that not every gaming experience we have over the year is necessarily a good one. For every best, there is also a worst. And the worst for me this year was Use Your Words. We are a big fan of the Jackbox Party Pack series of games, so when other party style games like it come out, I'm always interested in seeing how they compare and if they add anything a little different than the Jackbox experience. Use Your Words was one such game we tried this year. It was definitely a game that had potential and even had a clever mode using foreign films and having you provide the subtitles. This was really the only mode that offered much of anything different from the Jackbox games in my opinion. The rest felt like riffs on what Jackbox had already done and had honestly done better. The game just felt a bit slower in pace than it needed to and just wasn't as polished as it could have been. I didn't dislike this game as much as last year's worst game. It's just not as good as probably any of the Jackbox Party Packs we've played, and we've played all but a couple of the most recent. With such stiff competition, you have to really bring something significant to the table and offer a polished experience. Use Your Words just doesn't do either of these things. Next category is weirdest game I played this year. There are some weird games out there. Games with strange stories, weird graphical choices, or just a strange combination of themes or gameplay elements. Weird doesn't have to mean bad though. It can, but sometimes a game is also weird and good. And the winner for this is 112th Seed. This is one of those games that if you think too hard about it, it doesn't really make any sense. It's a 2D puzzle platformer where you're a plant solving puzzles on various levels. How are you able to move around and do this? I'm not really sure. Why is the research facility so very difficult to traverse? Also a very good question. It's a cute and nice simple little puzzle game, but it also sports a really strange little premise. The game also has some other weird aspects that will come up in another spot on the list a bit later. Next award is the oldest game I played this year. Now, it's hard not to focus on the new. There are so many games that come out every year that it's super easy to forget about the great games from the past. Just being old doesn't make a game good, but making sure we look back every once in a while to older games is important too. At least it is to me. So that's why I wanted to add a category like this. And I'm putting Final Fantasy VII as the oldest game I played this year. Now, dating games can sometimes be a bit of a puzzle. I played Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 4 this year. Technically, this version released in 2015. However, this is based off the PC release from 2012, which is a re-release of the old PC version that originally released in 1998. So what year would you consider this game? I'm considering it the original release of 1998, since this is largely a port of the original PC version of the game. It's not a remake or a remaster like the Pixel Remaster series that has just been released on consoles last year. Sure, the game has received a few new updates and tweaks, but nothing that would make me consider this as a remaster of the game. More like patches and updates than anything else. And the remake is already a thing out there, so it's definitely not that either. If you're not happy with that rationale, then Terraria would win this award since it was released originally in 2011. I'll say that Final Fantasy VII definitely looked and felt like the older game between these two. It's still a good game, but PS1 graphics have not aged well, even with a few tweaks to make them look better on today's screens. And this ends some of the odder parts of my list. Before I get into some of my favorite games I played this year, I want to talk about the easiest and and hardest platinum trophies of the year. I'm a trophy hunter to a certain degree and like to try to complete the games I play as much as possible, so I wanted my list to reflect that aspect of my gaming as well. And first, I'll look at the hardest platinum of 2024, and that is Completionist from Terraria. I've played Terraria for years on the PlayStation. The last few years, I've mostly played with my kids over the summer. Playing with them, I was able to finish up some of the grindiest trophies in the game that I had left over. You have to be pretty intentional to work towards the platinum trophy on Terraria, and doing it legitimately will take a lot of time and effort. Now, I wasn't playing it like all the time to get it, so it took me longer than what I would if I was dedicated towards it, but it still takes a lot of work, a lot of playtime, and just a lot of luck sometimes to get the items that you need to finish up all the trophies that are in this game. And then the easiest platinum of 2023 was Puzzle Master from 112th Seed. Told you this would be coming up again later in the list, and this platinum trophy was pretty much a joke. This was the weird aspect that I mentioned earlier, is that you could earn the platinum for this game about a third of the way through the game. And this was by far the easiest platinum of the year, but I can't say that earning it was all that satisfying. I do try to avoid games like this that have super easy platinums that don't even have you play the whole game before you've got a platinum, but every once in a while I think a game looks cute or fun and they kind of slip by me. So yeah, that was definitely my easiest by far, but as I said, it was not a really great feeling whenever it popped, like not even halfway through the game. The remaining awards are all highlighting some of the best games I played this year in various categories. These categories aren't really by genre, but more just reflect the games I play over the year. So we'll start off with favorite online game I played this year. Online games are an interesting beast. New ones get released each year, but even older games can get so many updates that they continue to feel fresh for years after their initial release. That's why I'm focusing on what I played this year, not what was just released this year. And like last year, Fortnite wins this category. There's just no online game that I play quite as much or enjoy my playtime with. Sure, it can be frustrating if you get eliminated too quickly in multiple games, but that doesn't tend to happen that often. I just feel like Fortnite as a whole does a lot right. Some new things they try may not really interest me, like rocket racing or kicks, but others do, like Fortnite Festival and the majority of the seasons. Add to this that it is a game that I can play with the whole family, and it will take a lot to beat Fortnite out. One game that may come close is Marvel Rivals. It just released at the end of 2024, so it's still a bit early to say where this will wind up for me. I can't foresee it overtaking Fortnite, but that's probably the closest contender for favorite online game this year. Next, I'll look at my favorite remake or remaster. I didn't have this category last year. Last year I had a category on best free-to-play story game, but I didn't really play many of those this year. So instead of just dropping a category, I decided to focus on the best remake or remaster that I played this year. And the winner for this is Final Fantasy VI Pixel Remaster. The SNES era of Final Fantasy, particularly Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI, hold a special place in my heart. They were both games that I had while growing up, and I played quite a bit. There were also games that really took storytelling in the Final Fantasy series to the next level, and are still stories that I feel hold up pretty well today. I played through the Pixel Remaster version of 4, 5, and 6 this year, but I think that Final Fantasy VI is my favorite remaster of the year. I just love the large cast of diverse characters. They also all have their own unique skills and equipment that they can use that gives them another layer of distinction. Add in a story that takes some wild twists and turns in the presence of one of the most iconic villains of the Final Fantasy series, and you have a game that I find super enjoyable. Next category is favorite endless game that I started this year. Endless games are my own category of game that lumps all the games that don't really have a story and a set endpoint. They're games that you can kind of play endlessly if you really wanted to. I'm reducing this to games that I started for the first time over the past year, so I don't wind up having duplicate winners or the same winner in this category year after year. Since one of the dangers of this kind of game is that you can keep playing it for a very, very long time, so I don't want one game to dominate year after year after year here. And the winner this year is Ultimate Chicken Horse. I'd heard about Ultimate Chicken Horse a number of years ago, but I never really looked too close at it. That changed this year when we finally played it together as a family. This game is just hilarious and a lot of fun to play. It seems very simple to start with. You have a map where you need to make it from point A to point B. However, before you run each round, you get to place an object. These can range from just normal platforms to dangers like crossbows and flamethrowers. You're trying to make the course dangerous so that you can make it to the goal, but others can't. If everyone makes it, you get no points. If nobody makes it, you also get no points. It's a simple setup, but it can get chaotic fast, and some of the layouts you make can lead to hilarious scenarios and ways to die. While we didn't really play this until the last couple months of the year, it quickly became a new favorite of the family. Next is the favorite DLC from this year. Technically, I played 3 DLCs this year, the same as last year. These were the Frozen Wilds from Horizon Zero Dawn, and 2 from Vampire Survivors, Operation Guns, and Ode to Castlevania. While I didn't release a DLC review for for the Frozen Wilds, since it comes bundled in the complete edition these days, I did still want to count it as a DLC I played over the year. And the winner is Ode to Castlevania from Vampire Survivors. Ode to Castlevania is my favorite DLC from the year. It is the best DLC for Vampire Survivors and does so much right. I was worried that this DLC would wind up being redundant and underwhelmed, but I couldn't have been more wrong. This DLC just added so much content to Vampire Survivors that it's kind of ridiculous. While it is a bit more expensive than any of the other DLCs so far, it also adds more content except for a number of maps than all of the other DLCs combined. I have always liked the Vampire Survivors DLC, but Ponkel went above and beyond for this DLC and delivered a magnificent love letter to Castlevania and a great experience to work through for those who love Vampire Survivors. And the last category is the favorite story game that I played this year. The winner of that is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. This was a game I kept hearing about in vague terms. I kept hearing it was a great game, but that there wasn't a lot that could be said about the story without giving too much away. After playing the game myself, I understand this description and agree with it wholeheartedly. This is a game that I really enjoyed. The story is just a crazy ride that will lead you one way, and when you think you have it figured out, will add some detail that changes everything and makes you wonder what in the world is really going on in this story. While I do have to admit that some of the gameplay here is maybe a bit less amazing, I didn't really think that any of it was bad, or even just bad enough to bring an amazing game down at all. I really enjoyed this game and recommend that you give it a shot. I definitely admit that this won't be a game for everyone probably, but if it hits your areas of interest, it will be a game that you'll enjoy quite a bit. And that's it for this little mashup of a year in review and my own personal awards for the year. I hope that you had an enjoyable 2024 and that you wound up playing an enjoyable assortment of games, whether they're ones that were released this year or not. There are so many great games out there and not nearly enough time to play them all. I hope you enjoyed the video and feel free to say what some of your favorite games were this year in the comments. You can even give some games that fit some of mine or your own weird categories for the year, as that would be a lot of fun to see. Again, I hope everyone had a great year. This will be my last video for 2023, so thanks for all those who have watched, liked, commented, and subscribed during the year. It means a lot to me, and I'll hope that the channel can continue to grow over time. That's all for this video though, so have a happy new year, and I'll see you next time.